This is Priyanka Mattoo, and you're watching the TV Writer Podcast.
My name's Gray Jones, and I want to welcome you to the TV Writer Podcast, partner of Script Magazine, episode 109 for August 4th, 2020. Well, today I have the pleasure of bringing you an interview with Priyanka Mattoo. Priyanka is a writer and filmmaker. She's a former UTA and WME agent, and she's also a Vulture columnist. And in particular, the reason that I wanted to bring her on the podcast was because of an excellent article she wrote on Vulture called "What's the Best Way to Find a Mentor in Hollywood During Lockdown?" I thought this would be of particular interest to us right now because, of course, we are in lockdown. And you might be wondering what you can do to reach out to people. So you're definitely going to appreciate the things she has to say, not just about this, but about a lot of other industry stuff. It's of special interest to if you are trying to break in or maybe new on staff. Lots of great tips in this interview. If you'd like to support this podcast, you can do it for as little as 25 cents per episode. You can find out how you can become a patron of the podcast or a sponsor of the podcast at tvwriterpodcast.com/support. Make sure to subscribe on all of the places you can find this podcast: Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, the tvwriterpodcast.com site, or also at scriptmag.com, and now also on Pandora. And if you're on Instagram, please follow at TV Writer Podcast. Please do follow me on Twitter. At Gray Jones is my handle. You're going to love the interview with Priyanka. Let's roll. Well, this is great, and I'm so pleased to be here with writer, filmmaker, former UTA and WME agent, and Vulture columnist, Priyanka Mattoo. How are you doing, Priyanka?
I'm great.
Honestly, I am so excited to have you on because I think you can speak to a segment of the people in this industry that are possibly in a situation that is most unknown right now, and that is with this virus. People have been working for a while. They're busy. They know what to do. But I was particularly interested by your article about what's the best way to find a mentor in Hollywood during lockdown. And I think that people who aren't working yet, it may be unclear what to do. And I would love to speak to that today.
Yeah, it's a real anxiety I keep hearing. I think I tend to hear the same questions over and over again in clusters, and I really get a sense of what anxiety is going around the young writers
Yeah.
at that time. So I heard that a lot. Like, what can I be doing other than just writing scripts? Like, also people just looking for guidance when, especially in this country, we don't seem to have a lot. Leave it at that.
Yeah.
Just people looking for like someone more experienced to say everything's going to be okay. I say that my column is kind of a monthly, everything's going to be okay. And so that's what I was trying to get across.
Very cool. And we're going to talk at length about that after the break. But first, I want to hear all about you. I mean, wow, you've got a pretty full story. I'm going to say that. But talk about sort of where you grew up, how you ended up in the U.S., and how you ended up as an agent at UTA, WME, etc.
Oh my God, it was a wild ride. It was action-packed. I didn't grow up in the United States. I was born in India and Kashmir, and then grew up abroad in England and in Saudi Arabia. And we moved to the U.S. when I was a teenager, at the beginning of high school, like in the middle of my freshman year, to suburban New York for my dad's job. He's a doctor, and I thought, I was going to go to med school. I was going to go to MIT and become an aerospace engineer, and then I was going to go to med school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was just gonna do that was my plan. And then I got to college and I realized there were so many interesting, cool things that I could be studying. So I went to law school instead, just so I could not take biology classes.
So aerospace, medicine, and then law. Uh-huh.
I bought myself some time going to law school. I majored in Italian. I lived in Italy. I really had this very
Wow.
this liberal arts dream lifestyle, and that made me realize that I wasn't meant for a life in medicine.
Hmm.
And so I moved out here with I went to law school and then I knew I didn't want to practice. I was glad I did it, but I just didn't want to practice. And
Hmm.
I didn't even know that agencies existed. I started talking to a friend who was moving to LA and she said, you might be a good fit for an agency. And I said, I don't have a TV. I don't doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So I started doing my research and I found Peter Benedek, who is one of the co-founders of UTA. He
Hmm.
went to Michigan like I did, and he was a lapsed attorney as I was. And I reached out to him with my resume and I said, I'm just graduating from law school. I would love to, work in an agency. And he said, come out for
Hmm.
an interview. And he hired me and I moved out 3 weeks later. So
Wow.
knowing basically nothing other than what I had Googled, I thought, well, here's an adventure. I was 23 at the time, maybe.
Hmm.
So it was the kind of time in your life when it doesn't matter so much. I thought I'd try it. My parents were nervous, but they said, do it for a year
Hmm.
and then see how you feel. You can always move home. Of
Hmm.
course, I said I'm never moving back to Michigan.
Yeah.
Um, and then I got promoted very quickly. I really found my feet here. I didn't know comedy existed as
Hmm.
an industry. And I found I found out that the things that I had always liked, the things I had always had an eye for, picking out people that were funny, picking out material that was
Hmm.
funny, was something that I could actually turn into an income. And
Mm.
that was shocking to me. So I was promoted very quickly. I was an agent. I think I was an assistant for a year, maybe a year and a half.
Hmm.
And then I was an agent very quickly. And so I was working with all these movie stars all of a sudden.
Hmm.
It was a crazy ride. Um, and when they said they were going to promote me, I remember Peter and my old boss Sharon calling me and saying, over Christmas one time, I was home with my parents and I was like, "You guys are all nuts. I'm gonna go. No one will be offended by this. They know."
Yeah.
I said, "You guys are all nuts. Agents are crazy. I'm gonna go take the bar exam and I'm just gonna be a lawyer." And they called me
Wow.
over Christmas and said, "What do you need?" They're like, "You're good. You can, you're just good. You're good with the clients. You know
Hmm.
what's funny. You have all the skills." And I said, "Well, I need more money." And they were like, "Okay, we have money." Like, we have
Yeah.
money. And I said, well, what, I don't think I want to be an agent. And they said, why don't you try it out for a year? And if you don't like it, it was ridiculous that I
Yeah.
had to have this conversation. If you don't like it, then we'll help you find another job. And then you won't be an
Hmm.
assistant, dum dum,
Yeah.
which was a very good point. And so I tried it out for 4 more years. And
That's a good try.
I started
Yeah.
signing my own people, which was super fun. That was my favorite part of
Hmm.
the job. So I signed, my first client was Ellie Kemper, and
Hmm.
then I signed Kumail and then Johnny. And I loved my clients. Jenny Slate
Mm.
I worked with, like a lot of really cool up and come. They're all famous now.
Yeah.
But signing those people, and because they found their footing really quickly, um, gave me a lot of credibility. It's
Mm.
such a funny town. So
Yeah.
so once I started signing these people started taking me seriously. And and at the same time, I was already working with these sort of like high level talent. So I started out with a really good Rolodex.
Mm. Yeah.
And then I didn't want to be an agent anymore. I really did try to quit every year. I would go into my yearly meeting and they would say, "What if we give
Yeah.
you more money?" or "Here's your bonus." And I was like, it's not for me. Something's missing.
Mm.
And I didn't know what
Yeah.
was missing. But when Jack Black, who I had worked with on the agent side, was getting an offer to fund a TV company, and he was kind of
Hmm.
like, well, who would I hire? He's got a, it's not a decision anyone could take lightly to like let someone
Hmm.
into their lives. And I was like, well, I'm already here, and I don't want to be
Yeah.
at the agency. And so I left and I built a TV company for him. So I was
Wow.
partnered with him for 5 years. And in that job, I did not know what I was doing. I remember
Hmm.
week one Googling how to give notes. I was like, what do they look like?
And
I've
the
never,
funny thing is, being on the receiving end of notes, it's a common joke about how long somebody may have been doing their job before giving that note.
100%. Week one, he was like, could you turn around some notes on the script? And I was like, I
Wow.
mean, I got pretty good at it. I learned how a script was built inside and out. I
Hmm.
learned how to develop a pitch so that it sold. We sold like, I don't even know, 40 pitches in the 5 years I was with him.
Wow.
We that was something I got really good at, was pitching
Hmm.
and selling TV shows. Um, and ultimately I was doing more and more of the creative lifting, especially since I really enjoyed walking first time writers through their first sale.
Hmm.
So as I was teaching people to come up with TV ideas and sell them, then I had my first baby and I thought, wait a minute, like I'm this close to the material and I have so many ideas and so many things that
Hmm.
I want to say. Why don't I just try it? And I was a little bit secretive about it. I had only told
Hmm.
Jack, I said, I'm going to
Yeah.
try writing this thing and shooting it. And if it's bad, no one will see it. And if it's good, maybe, it'll change my life.
Hmm.
So when I had a toddler at the time, it was 2018, 2017. I wrote a short film and I wrote it for my favorite actress, who's a woman named Mira Sile, who lives in England. She's a
Hmm.
comedy legend, British Indian comedy legend. I wrote it for her. I had met her once on a set and I held on to her email address. And I wrote this short
Hmm.
film. I shot it at my house. I
Wow.
sent it to her and said, we've only met once. Would you fly to Los Angeles? I can fly you here on points,
Wow.
and do my short film. And it just came together. It came together. I shot it in a
Wow.
weekend. Um, and it was the first time I ever felt like this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Hmm.
This is right. I woke up the first day I was supposed to direct and I was terrified. I was terrified of directing and it just felt like home. I
Hmm.
mean, I did shoot at
Very
my
cool.
house. Shot at my house, and it was home.
Yeah.
I still remember the AD yelling at me about wearing flip-flops in my
Hmm.
house before we
Yeah.
he was like, you gotta wear closed-toed shoes. I was like, I just woke up at my house, so I haven't had time to put on real shoes yet. But the
Yeah.
but the short film, it went to a bunch of festivals. It played in Cannes. Um, I was super pregnant with my second baby by then, so I couldn't even go to the festivals.
Wow.
And I sold it to Amazon as a TV idea. That was my first sale.
Oh wow.
Um, and so I wrote that pilot for Amazon. It didn't go forward, but it was kind of
Hmm.
what got me into the writing game.
Hmm.
And I sold that with Jake Kasdan and Nachka Khan producing. So yeah, since then it's been
Wow.
pitching and selling and writing, and that's what got me doing this. Uh,
Very, very, very cool. And what a neat story. I love those like the very unlikely situations and things
mm,
come together like that.
yeah, it was highly unlikely. I say that I
Yeah.
kept taking like baby steps toward what I ultimately wanted to do. It just took a second for me
Hmm.
to realize it.
Yeah. And you've invested pretty heavily into podcasting. Tell me about your podcasting stuff.
Yes. So podcasting, I was waiting for my Amazon deal to close on that first sale that I was telling you about, and it was
Hmm.
taking a really long time. And so my two friends, I think because I was used to the pace of an agency that has never
Hmm.
left me. And so two friends of mine who are longtime podcasters came to me and said, we'd like to start a podcast network that focuses on female hosts, on women
Hmm.
hosts.
Very cool.
And I said, I love the idea. I'll help you get it off the ground because I do have that business brain that
Hmm.
was sitting idle while I was writing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we partnered up and got it off the ground, and we were expecting to have a few shows that first year, but it ended up being 13 shows.
13. Wow.
Yeah. The first person on board was Margaret Cho,
Hmm.
which was unbelievable. Again,
Wow.
that's where my background helps because her agents at WME felt safe
Hmm.
partnering her up with me, knowing that it wasn't going to be bad and I knew how to deal with talent and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Um, and yeah, we just celebrated our first year, but it's been an amazing year. I mean, we yeah, 13 shows, all really like critically acclaimed. We made money. I mean, it's
Hmm.
knock on wood, it's going pretty well. Um, but yeah, I think I just am so attracted to storytelling in any form that this and the low barrier to entry was really appealing to me, especially in
Hmm.
helping women who I
Yeah.
know, instead of churning through the sort of like pilot pitching process, could have
Yeah.
an idea and then just make it. It's so freeing.
Yeah. Very, very cool. And you also podcast, you do a beauty wellness podcast.
I have I host a podcast, which I didn't mean to do. It wasn't on purpose necessarily.
Hmm.
I had an idea for a beauty and wellness podcast hosted by women of color,
Hmm.
because I felt like that was a big hole in the market. And
Yeah.
then because we were so DIY, we were funded off of a Kickstarter, basically.
Hmm.
I realized I couldn't actually afford a host, so I had to host it myself.
Uh,
And I was very reluctant, but
yeah.
I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it because we're having conversations that need to be heard, I think.
Hmm. That's the best reason to start a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. So yeah,
actually,
that's
when I started this one, it was now back in 2010. There wasn't a lot out there about TV writing, and and especially about TV writers.
mm-hmm.
I mean, there was sort of how you do this, how you do that, but there wasn't a lot of sort of the backstory of people's lives, and that was
Right.
a lot of why I started this one.
Right. And that stuff I think is so inspiring because you can talk about the craft all you want, but until you
Hmm.
hear someone's personal story,
Hmm.
it's harder to connect.
Yeah. Very cool. And so how I found you was your Vulture article on mentoring. But before we get into that article, I want to take some time to just showcase the dozens of articles you've written on that column, and also other publications, which everybody can find at your website, prima2.com.
Yeah, I archive everything on there because I know it's useful.
Yeah.
Um,
Let me
yeah,
just mention a few of the titles because I think people will sort of get an idea of what's there. What four showrunners look for when staffing a room, the pilot script checklist, how do I deal with harassment at my TV writing job, how exactly does someone pitch a TV show. These are some great topics. What was the inspiration for this column?
um, like anything else I take on, if I feel a compulsion, I have to do it. So, I've always been, I say that my type is big sister. I am a big
Mm-hmm.
sister, and that's kind of how I navigate the world. And so I was having all these coffees with like young writers, and I thought I need to codify this. So I called at the
Mm.
time, because I worked primarily in comedy, I called Splitsider. And I said, "You don't know me. You remember Splitsider was owned by the All. It was a comedy site that got absorbed into Vulture
Mm-hmm.
later. So I called Splitsider. I didn't know them at all. And I said, "Listen, you don't know me. I have an advice column to pitch." Very, very on brand.
Yeah.
I was like, here are the things I want to address, and I just started writing it. And then once it got absorbed into Vulture, they called me and they said, we love your column, and we think it's really important. And would you want to keep writing it? And I said, of course, of course. I mean,
Mm.
it's my public service a little bit because I can't have 100 coffees. I have two jobs and I have
Yeah.
two kids, and but all of the advice I have to give, I try to put in the column so that people can access it whenever they want, and so they can share it and pass it around. And I think a lot of people traditionally have been kept away from the industry because it feels so opaque.
Mm.
And I've been fortunate enough to really get in quickly and easily and have people help me along the way. And so it's
Mm.
just paying it forward.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Do you ever think about writing a book? I mean, you've got enough material.
Yes. Yes, yes, of course. Of course. Of course.
Hmm.
When I find the time. I mean, there are two books
Yeah.
that I want to write. One is just I write essays
Hmm.
also for the New York Times and for the New Yorker and that kind of thing, just personal essays. So I have about my childhood, which is, it's
Hmm.
interesting. So there's one book idea that I have that's a book of personal essays about looking for a home, searching for a home my whole life when mine disappeared. I was from Kashmir and
Hmm.
we haven't been back since this exodus in
Wow.
1989. So that's one book. And then, yes, it would be, I think, a manual for
Hmm.
writers wanting to enter the industry. That too, I think, would be really helpful. Just like a book that people can actually pick up and leaf through. Um, yes, I have thought about that. I
Hmm.
probably will do that.
Well, you
But
have
for
a
now, it's
pretty.
free on the internet.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah. Please avail yourself. Prima2.com. And I'll put a link in the description of the episode.
Yeah.
Well, you have a pretty unique viewpoint. I mean, coming at it from, I mean, being at the big agencies and your production company with Jack Black and also all the pitching and now you're filmmaking and writing. So I think there'd be a lot there to merit a book. But we're going to
Oh,
take a quick sponsor break right now, and we'll be back to talk all about finding a mentor during lockdown. DrivingFootage.com provides 4K 9-angle driving plates for film and television. Over 14,000 clips are available for locations all around Southern California, with more areas coming soon. A fully equipped camera car with height adjustable rig is available for custom shoots and second unit photography. Visit drivingfootage.com for details. avgearguide.com provides computer and gear rentals serving the LA area, including laptops with Final Draft, as low as $9 a day with long booking rates available. They also scan photos, documents, video and audio tapes, and film reels to digital so you can easily share with your friends and family. Mention the name of the TV Writer Podcast and you will get 10% off your order. Visit avgearguide.com for details. Full disclosure, I do own both of these companies. By supporting them, you help me bring new in-person video interviews to you. Okay, we're back. And so I want to break down your Vulture article.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best way to find a mentor during Hollywood during lockdown? And it all started from a request somebody sent to you. Let's talk about that request.
Yes. A woman I know had submitted. It's funny when people I know submit to the column because they're just like, hey, it's me. We had coffee once. But it usually is, like I said, I try to address questions that I hear more than once because one-offs I can just answer on Twitter or whatever.
Yeah.
But I had heard from a few people, and especially this woman I know who had really articulated it well, who said she was writing and she was doing all the things she felt like she was supposed to be doing, but she had some anxiety about like finding a mentor, that she felt like she was getting a lot of conflicting information, that without a mentor to help you through the industry, you're kind of lost. Or how are you supposed to look for a mentor? Are you just supposed to email people and say, will you mentor me? And I was just like, oh, I'm so glad you asked this, because now I understand why I'm getting all these emails from people saying they'd like to pick my brain or have coffee. And this is my opportunity to kind of lay out perhaps a better method.
Well, and I love your response. But just to break down a little bit, your first response is best not to cold email strangers. But I do find that interesting because there may be some caveats to that in the sense of, say, for instance, how you got started at the agency was technically a cold contact.
Absolutely. And I actually had a line in it that I don't know if it got edited out or if I edited it out myself because it sounded like a joke. I mean, if you have a touch point, like you went to the same college or you have a friend in common, and I think when I reached out to, I should clarify that here, when I reached out to Peter, I had found out that one of the screenwriting professors at Michigan knew him. So I asked if it was okay to use his name. So I did lay the groundwork for that so that it wasn't just a total stranger. It was like, I'm emailing from Michigan. I spoke to Professor, it was Jim Bernstein, who's awesome. He wrote Renaissance Man. And he suggested, whatever it was, like I laid the groundwork. It wasn't just like, you don't know me, but will you help? Which I think can be kind of jarring for people to get, especially busy people.
Well, that's a really good point, and I think it's worth even going a little further into, because I find there is a lot of cold contacting technically that has to go on in networking, but there's ways that you can build a network where you have those people who can say, can you help me get coffee with this person, or could I mention you when I'm reaching out to this person, or that kind of thing. What can people do to build that?
Yeah, absolutely. On one hand, like I said, if you are reaching out to someone, you can try to find a touch point, whether it's a university or a high school, a hometown, a friend in common. Sometimes Facebook can be very helpful for that. I'm not on Facebook, but I know you can say, oh, we have this friend in common, and that will give you like a little bit of a boost. But other than just that, I feel like the focus first should be your own work and building your lateral network. I talk about this a lot, which is like the people who are your peers or just above. I think a lot of writers not necessarily make a mistake, but feel the need to reach out, for example, to the showrunner of their favorite show, which is sure, but I've seen showrunners inboxes and they're alarming. So my advice is like reach out to like, oh, the most junior writer on the show who you follow on Twitter. Like that person might have something to say to you and might want to help, especially if you come from the same background or you're both women or you're both, whatever it is. So the only, there's this idea that only the person at the very top is able in a position to help you, and that's not true. Like we all rise with the tide, and I think that's something you need to kind of keep in mind. I didn't have any important friends or contacts until we all just rose, and now my friends are running studios or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's how it happens. It wasn't like I wasn't, as a young agent, I wasn't hanging out with the head of Universal.
Yeah. Well, and I think that something that happens in this lockdown is a lot of people, they're not working right now. And so they have a ton of time on their hands.
Absolutely.
And it's easy to think that so does everybody else. But the showrunners that I talk to, without fail, are just as busy now as they ever
Oh,
were. Plus, they have their kids
more,
and all that going on. Um,
more
and
busy.
yeah, and everybody's facing the same challenges. I was talking to a showrunner the other day that he was pitching and his cat walked across the screen and it totally broke up the pitch. Um, and I, as I'm scheduling things, people have to, okay, I got to take my kids to this, and people are more busy right now.
Definitely, because at least usually you have the separation. You can go to work and you're at work and you come home and you're at home. The thing that nobody ever talks about is childcare and how childcare
Hmm.
is the thing that makes the entire TV industry work. Because without childcare, and most of the showrunners I know do have children and families, without childcare, we're lost. And that's what you're seeing right now because a lot of people don't have nannies around because their nannies aren't safe. A lot of people don't have daycare options. Obviously, schools are closed. So I would say when you're reaching out to showrunners right now, they're the most stressed they've ever been.
Hmm.
Especially when they're being told like, no, the show isn't going, or we can't shoot until next year, or we can't shoot until there's a virus. They feel responsible for the hundreds and hundreds of people who are not able to work in the interim. That's
Hmm.
very stressful.
Yeah, and you said something interesting. Asking someone to mentor you when they're already spinning 9 plates at once comes across as a ton of work. Um, that totally makes sense because why, like, and even if they did say yes, they're not going to have the time to give you.
No.
So what can you do?
So what you can do is like sit back and take a look around you. And I hear a lot like I don't know anybody and I don't have any resources, but that's not true. Like I doubt that you're pursuing a creative profession without having people around you who are also trying to pursue creative professions. So even
Hmm.
if you're both just starting out, perhaps one of you wants to write something that the other person directs. Perhaps you want to record a podcast that could serve as a proof of concept for a TV show idea you have. Like you can always do the work, but reach laterally. I mean,
Hmm.
reach out to people who have the time for you right now. And it's not anything to take personally. It's not like some showrunner is getting like 20 cold emails a day and then picks the one that he or she thinks merits a response. Like that person is
Hmm.
just not responding to their emails right now,
Yeah.
unless it's like you have a pitch meeting at this time.
Yeah.
It's just not. I'm not even running a show when my emails are turning into a mess. So it's about creating the work, but also like collaborating with people in whatever
Hmm.
way you can. Having a
Yeah.
friend read and give notes on your script, giving notes on a friend's script. Also like having, like making sure you have a network of people who are interested in other things, like people who
Hmm.
are interested in working at agencies or interested in producing or interested in because these are the people who are going to buy your stuff, man. Like your
Hmm.
friends can't all be writers. You can't completely dismiss the suits. Like keep an eye on, and I don't think networking, I've never, it's not that networking is a dirty word.
Hmm.
I just don't like the idea of it as being like purposefully going out there to make connections with people you wouldn't otherwise. I think see who you're drawn to,
Hmm.
foster and nurture those connections. I mean, my friends that I work with now are my real friends I've
Hmm.
known for 15 or 16 years.
Yeah.
Um, so it's that. It's building your Rolodex now because
Hmm.
as everyone moves along the conveyor belt of success, right? Like hopefully there will be more people in positions of influence to say, "Hey, I can't do that job, but you know who you should hire?" Or, "Of course I
Hmm.
have a friend who you should interview." Like this stuff comes up. I mean, something just came to me this morning that was oh, your friend your I was a referral from a friend who
Hmm.
passed on something and I was like, great, like
Yeah.
that's great for me. That's more opportunities for me. But this is where it starts. It starts laterally, I think.
Hmm. Uh, just recently, I talked to Evan Bleiweiss. He played hockey with Sean Ryan back in the
Hmm.
day,
Hmm.
but he didn't join the hockey team to network,
Exactly.
and Sean didn't give him an opportunity just because he was on that hockey team. They just became friends as they were there. They chatted, and Sean became interested in what he was
Yeah.
doing. Even when he gave him an opportunity, it wasn't necessarily a great opportunity. It was just
Hmm.
to sort of observe and I hear a lot of the junior levels are actually far more helpful
Yeah.
because they're sort of plugged into the bottom level. If you're talking to a production assistant on a show, when they move up to writer's assistant, there's an opening beneath that
Exactly.
they just left, and they're the
Hmm.
only person they're the first person to know about that.
Hmm.
So in terms of practicality, it's much more practical to reach out to the sort of lower levels.
Absolutely. And when you're an assistant too, like I tell assistants, why are you bothering trying to get audiences with your boss's friends? Like that's not your job right now. Your job is to like
Mm,
make friends with other assistants because that will, that will work out for you in the long run. And the Sean Ryan story you told, I mean, ultimately, like you don't need to like corner someone and talk to them at work nonstop and like shove your
mm,
work down their throat. It's about building a real relationship so that someday when your name comes up, which it will,
mm,
he can go, oh yeah, or he or she can go, oh yeah, I like him or I like her, because ultimately, like I said in the showrunner column, you're spending, 12, 16-hour days with these people in a room. You want to know that
yeah,
they're not nuts.
yeah, and never, never, ever ask for stuff. Let them offer. I knew a girl once. I can't even forget what she did, but it was something involved a lot of working with the public, and she said the best way to get somebody on your good side is ask questions about them.
Yes,
Don't make it about yourself.
100%. When I was an agent, my mentor said, it was a signing meeting, and I said, do you have any advice? She said, the more you listen, the more they like you.
Hmm. Yeah, very, very wise. Now, you said mentors are willing to slide into place and help you up when you start to prove yourself useful to their business. That was really interesting to me because I had to think back. I mean, this is episode 109 or something.
Mm.
I've talked to a lot of different people, and I had to think. I almost always ask them about mentoring, and I can't think of one case where somebody asked the person to mentor them.
No.
Uh, yeah, but
Yeah.
until I read that, it didn't dawn on me that that was true. Talk about that.
I think that again, I think everyone's attention at a certain level, sort of mid-career and up, is so diluted and distracted that for them to sit down and focus on you is asking a lot of a
Hmm.
human. However, they will notice the person who they find most valuable to making their jobs easier. And so that's your job. Like your job is to make their jobs easier. Not
Hmm.
forever. You
Yeah.
get to have your own career. You get to be the star eventually, absolutely. But for now, showing someone what you can do to make their day easier, I think is the easiest way for them to go like, "Oh, and how can I help you?" Or
Hmm.
if someone says, "I need to hire a writer, I need to hire a person," even though it's hard to let go of you to say, "Well, I love, so and so who I love our writer's assistant. She was fantastic. Like I
Hmm.
love this person. They were great." So, so yeah, these are busy people. There's a lot of logistics involved. So if your superhuman strength is writing a page of jokes in 10 minutes, or it's breaking a story, or it's just like ordering lunch, I don't know, like whatever it is that can make someone's life a little bit better, like that doesn't go unnoticed.
Hmm.
The people that I find get promoted from like writer's assistant and get hired as writer's assistants are the people who you can delegate to
Hmm.
and feel comfortable about it. Um, we always, my husband and I have like shared an assistant for a long time, and we've had a series of assistants, all of whom are now writers or who've moved on to other things,
Hmm.
other like really cool jobs, I think. But the ones that stick out, we always look for, we go, send us a writing sample. We want good writers because we want you to write, like
Hmm.
we're going to ask for your notes. We're going to give you notes. We're going to help you develop the stuff that you have. And then just like logistically, like just even remembering that like, oh no, I have this meeting. What do I need to prep for this meeting? Like
Hmm.
being our external hard drive, like that's really the job, right?
Yeah. Well,
So that,
I do feel like there's a way, and I know when you get on staff, it's one of the scariest things ever because you think you're gonna lose your job. You don't know how you can speak up because when you do, it seems like you're not saying anything near what everybody else
right.
is saying and all that. But I feel like there are ways that you can sort of in subtext ask for a
Mm.
mentor in the sense of, somebody said recently in an interview, at the end of the week, sort of going to one of the senior writers and saying, "How did I do this week? Tell me, is there anything I could have done better?" And that's a sort of very low effort way
Yeah.
of getting to them to mentor you a little. And if you have that kind of humility to sort of be asking those kinds of questions, I feel like
Hmm.
after a few weeks, they are going to be mentoring you, and maybe they don't even know it yet. And then it's sort of
Hmm.
easier to slide into that. You had mentioned sliding into it in your article.
Yeah, I think it's often more organic than that. Whether you're asking for feedback or you say like, is there anything? I mean, I was the queen of like, you seem like you're having. Again, I thought, as I made very clear, I thought all agents were crazy. I was the
Mm,
queen of like, you seem like you're having a hard time. Like, what can I do? You
mm,
know? Or a version of that because they are most of the time having a very hard time. And
yeah.
it was funny because I was very close to a bunch of like yellers, like these are some old school agents.
Yeah.
These are like agents who threw things. And I got like a reputation for being really like good with them. And
Yeah.
not my own boss. She was actually she was very kind to me.
Mm,
Um but I had a reputation for being good at handling them because the second they flew off the handle, I would be like, what is it? Like, what are you really upset about? And it was always
mm,
something really stressful in their own lives or some sort of insecurity about something that was going on at work, a fear that a client would leave them, whatever it was. It was about like
mm,
digging under and acknowledging that they didn't exist to serve you. They didn't exist
mm,
to like make your career. Um, that they had their things that they were worrying about and you were able to help them if only they would share with you. Does that make
mm.
sense?
Yeah.
Like that really helped.
Yeah. And I figure paying attention too is a big deal. Just noticing like
Yeah.
if there are problems that are happening fairly often, to think how could I be the solution to that problem?
Well, it's
Um,
listening. It's
yeah.
listening, being perceptive and seeing opportunities to help.
Hmm. Very cool. And so, what kinds of things can people do at the workplace to stand out? And this can apply not just in the writer's room, but even just for assistants, for the writer's assistant or as an assistant in an agency or somewhere else. What are the things that are going to make somebody want to mentor you?
I can only speak to my own experience and the experience of like the young women mostly that I've mentored and helped through. I'm sure there are a million ways, and other people can weigh in with their advice. But in retrospect, I mean, I can't say at the time that I knew what I was doing, but
Hmm.
one of them was don't talk shit. Just don't talk shit. Because
Hmm.
if you start talking shit, if you gossip, even if you have been lured into gossiping, don't
Hmm.
fall for it. Because the next thing your boss is thinking, it's what are they saying when I'm not around?
Hmm.
Do not talk shit. They want to know that you're trustworthy. I mean, obviously, if you're reporting like an actual violation, like please do that. But do you
Hmm.
know what I mean? Don't like the idle gossip. Like don't participate. You're there to work. You're there to work. Like you want to be
Yeah.
sociable and friendly, but that stuff is unnecessary. So one, don't talk shit. Two, read.
Hmm.
Read and live, like live experience, especially when you're writing and your main and what they really need is for you to bring ideas to the table. Like make sure you're reading everything and talking about
Hmm.
it so they know that you're interested in the world outside of those four walls. Again, a lot of
Hmm.
showrunners are not sitting around watching, rating everything. My direct contribution as an agent was I read every script and I read every book
Hmm.
and I told all the partners about it every Monday and said, "Hey, I saved you some time. The script is bad. The script is bad. The script is good. We should send it to this client and this client to direct. We should send it to this client to, like just
Hmm.
make yourself useful in that way." Um, Realizing that they don't have the time. There's a thing that there's a tone that what's her name refers to. You can have whatever opinion you want about Sheryl Sandberg, but she did say one thing in her book, which I
Hmm.
found very interesting, and that was to adopt the tone of relentlessly pleasant. Um,
I like that. I like that.
where like
Yeah.
I get a lot of stuff done. I don't back
Hmm.
away from a difficult conversation, but I'm very pleasant about it. I tend to
Hmm.
wander into situations thinking, we both want what's best. We both come from a place of like good and kindness. Maybe one of us is agitated today. Um, but whenever dealing with different situations, like relentless pleasantness
Hmm.
is a good place to go. So practice that.
Yeah.
Be nice to assistants. You got to be nice to assistants. Other than just being humane,
Hmm.
They have some of the worst jobs in the industry, if not the country.
Hmm.
Um, and for many reasons, assistants will help you. Like, it's so
Hmm.
funny. It's such a kind thing to do, and it's also so smart. I still 16 years in, I'll meet with execs now in my new life as a writer, and they'll be like, "You were so nice to me when I was an assistant." And I'm like, "I'm so sorry, I don't remember,
Hmm.
but you're giving me so much credit." And I'm really seeing that. Not that I meant for it to pay off, but it does.
Hmm.
Um, be really nice to assistants. Be nice to everybody.
Yeah.
It's not this like once you climb the ladder, then you can be mean. No one should be mean. The industry is
Hmm.
changing. There's certain behavior that is not accepted today that was even 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of like simple decency, we're all here to do our job, goes a long way. Um, what else? Just be willing to listen. Be
Hmm.
willing to listen. I think everyone, especially now that these rooms are so much more diverse and have such a wonderful breadth of experience and backgrounds, and are only getting better, I think, getting better and better and better. Um, yeah, just listen and participate and celebrate other people's voices. Like, act from a place of generosity.
Hmm.
I think that's really important. There's enough work to go around, I promise you.
Yeah.
Like, if you're good, like, just because that someone else has an opportunity, that doesn't mean there's like less work for you. There are more
I,
jobs. There are
yeah.
more jobs, there are more ideas. Come up with your own ideas, pitch those. Like, it's not just because someone else got something. And I think I addressed this in a column.
Hmm.
It was how do you deal with your friend's success? I can't reveal who asked me that question, but I'm
Uh-huh.
gonna tell you that they're super famous now.
Yeah.
So, like crazy famous.
Hmm.
So how do you deal with your friend's success? And it's like their success doesn't mean any less success for you.
Hmm.
The better your friends are doing, if they are true friendships and true relationships, the better it is for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have to wonder, like, people want a mentor. They want somebody to help them up. I feel like whatever you want to receive, you should be giving yourself. And there's always
Yeah.
somebody who's in a worse situation, younger, knows less, or maybe less connected. There's always somebody that you could be helping. And the way this industry goes, it
hmm
it really is true that that person could be hiring you one day.
100%. But you don't even need to have that kind of like the mechanics of it in your head. I think just like if I start to think too much about like who can do what for me, it gives me a
Mm.
headache. And it, and
Yeah.
the thing you said about like what will make a mentor notice you, all I can do again is like this is all retrospect because I know that I was really taken care of.
Hmm.
Always have been by the people by my higher ups, but I didn't set out to do that. But
Mm.
perhaps the tips that I'm giving you are the kind of energy I was putting out, which was like,
Right.
happy to be here, happy to have this job. How can I help? I'm reading a lot. I have a life outside of you people,
Mm.
like, but that doesn't mean
Yeah.
that I don't want to be useful. Like, I was very
Mm.
useful.
Yeah. Very cool. Now, one thing that we have to talk about right now, and
Yeah.
that's for a lot of us, the only way we're connecting right now is online. We're spending a lot more time on social networks. Spending a lot more time in the virtual world. What are some of the do's and don'ts? And specifically, you mentioned in your article Glenn Mazzara. You had a conversation with him about this stuff.
Yes, yes, I love talking to Glenn because he also like I'm very much I operate day to day in like a very comedy heavy world, and he is
Hmm.
obviously in like a totally different world, but he's got the same sort of mentorly spirit and
Hmm.
also very little time, so he was happy to kind of share this stuff widely. And he brought up a very interesting point about being online because people reach out to him online a lot, or they participate in things that he tweets, and there are things that draw him to people, and there are things
Hmm.
that like repel him from people. And it's very similar to what I said about the energy you're putting out in a workplace. He says that
Hmm.
he'll put out a question or even just a talking point and get things that are additive, like whether they're
Hmm.
ideas or suggestions from. Not to be gendered about it, but I think he actually did say like women can be really helpful, and then men will neg
Hmm.
him in trying to get his
uh,
attention. And he's like,
yeah.
your end goal is not my attention.
Hmm.
There are very bad ways to get someone's attention.
Hmm.
Your end goal is to prove yourself useful or point me towards something that you wrote or directed or created. What have you created of value today?
Hmm.
is always the question. Because negging me or disagreeing with my opinion, he's like, I'm not saying I'm right all the time,
Yeah.
but then, he's like, and then I'll look at a profile and the person will say they're an aspiring writer. Well, then why are you picking fights with showrunners online? That doesn't make any sense.
Wow. Wow. And he also talked about what people can be doing with their time right now involving writing.
Yeah, he said anything, he said create something. He's like anything with a beginning, middle, and end. Like a script is a script. Lots of people write a script. You should absolutely have a library of scripts, but have you thought about a podcast? Have you thought about audio play? Have you thought about a short film? Have you thought about animation? I mean, there are all these things
Hmm.
that you can do these days with just your computer and
Hmm.
like maybe one other person. But not really. Like you can do the one man, one woman, one man banding that
Hmm.
wasn't available to people 20 years ago when it was just like a spec script would make your career. It's not like that anymore. And also, and I don't know if I put this in the column, but here's another thing is I understand that, a lot of writers or aspiring writers too are super passionate about the things they watch and they read.
Hmm.
And without being too, I don't want to be, what's the word? I don't want to censor anyone, but maybe think before you put a negative opinion out there that someone worked really hard on it.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that someone might be in a sad place where they're Googling their name. And that
Yeah.
person might be in a position to hire you on a
Hmm.
show that you like. You wouldn't do that in a job interview. I don't think it's exactly censorious, but you wouldn't go into a company. Like I said, you wouldn't go into a company, you wouldn't go into an interview at McDonald's and then shit on Happy Meals for 20
Hmm.
minutes. Like
Yeah.
that's just not your presence is a job interview.
Hmm. And I think again, not necessarily um, doing it too methodically, but looking for opportunities to encourage that are genuine.
Yeah.
Like when you saw they did a really good job on something, to articulate what about it was good. Nobody dislikes hearing well articulated comments about how good a job they did.
Absolutely, absolutely, and reaching out to people when you like their work without a desire to get a response,
Hmm.
but just saying, "Hey, I love this article. Like, I really connected with it." People are no matter what level they are, no matter what level they are, that desire to connect with people and the desire to hear feedback doesn't go away, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, and it doesn't actually take that many responses to know who somebody is. Even people who reach out to me on Twitter about the podcast, even if they never say anything, I start to notice who's liking the
Yeah.
tweets a lot,
Yes.
or even just 3 or 4 or 5 nice comments. I know who that person is. They're all of a sudden a little more genuine than the random masses out there. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
My approach to Twitter is very, and I've made this mistake before, but I try to undo it. Is you know how they say you shouldn't drink when you're sad?
Hmm.
You should not go on Twitter when you're angry. Do not go on Twitter. I won't do it because I'll
Good
just spew
advice.
out a bunch of nonsense, which will get me a bunch of likes and retweets. But no, then I have to backtrack and be like, no, I was just
Yeah.
mad. I didn't mean to wade into this kind of conversation. I try to keep it really positive. Like on Twitter,
Hmm.
I share what I've read and I liked. I boost other people's work.
Hmm.
I reach out to other people. I like enjoy a conversation. But if I feel that anger, which by the way, I mean, it's a chicken and egg situation because once you get on Twitter, you're mad. But once you feel the
Yeah.
rage, step away. Step
Hmm.
away.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a lot of people have had social media fasts in this virus.
Oh yeah, I was off of Twitter and Instagram from December to the beginning of the pandemic.
Hmm.
And then I just started feeling very lonely because the internet was all of a sudden my only connection to people. So I
Yeah.
came back on, but I have to be very regimented about it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, it's quite interesting if you find yourself in a creative rut. Sometimes just completely unplugging is the best way to kickstart it.
100%. I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. I do it
Cool.
whenever I'm stuck.
Yeah. Well, we're coming to the end of our time here, but in summary, strengthen the lateral network, rework your online presence, polish your scripts, and make that short film or podcast. In essence, be the kind of person writing the kind of scripts that will make somebody want to mentor you or represent you or hire you. Does that about sum it up?
Oh, yes.
Yep. Well,
I don't know
let's
why I don't know why I needed 1,200 words.
well, you also mentioned the tail of your article. Let's say that people have been doing all of these things, and we're still in quarantine, maybe 3, 4, 5 months from now, God forbid. You mentioned that there are some live people who, for a fee, can help.
Yes, there's this company called SideTime, which had
Hmm.
reached out to me, but they have I have two friends who are lovely, David Iserson and Susanna Fogel. Susanna writes and directs, and David is has been a comedy writer for ages. He wrote on SNL.
Hmm.
He wrote The Spy Who Dumped Me, which Susanna directed. They're awesome. They're super talented, super kind, very grounded, smart people, and I
Hmm.
can't imagine two better people to be on side time. But you can set up appointments with them and pay per minute, which is like, I don't know, $1 a minute. And then for them, I think David is sending all the money to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and then
Hmm.
Susan is sending money to an organization called Ghetto Film School. So it's like,
Wow.
it's a great cause if you have like $30 to spare and you want to talk to a real live, well-respected working writer. Those two are good resources.
Very cool. Very, very neat stuff. So just to wrap up, make sure everybody follow at NAAN King. That's your Twitter handle?
Yes, not non-king, yes.
Non-King on Twitter. And before you ask Priyanka questions on Twitter, make sure you check out her great articles. You can find them all at primattoo.com, primattoo.com. And I suggest that people do your homework on her website first before reaching out to her.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks so much, Priyanka. This has been awesome. I hope it's very helpful to the viewers. And best of luck to you in your filmmaking and writing and all the things you do.
Thank you. So great to talk to you.
Yeah. That's all we have for this week. See you next time. Bye bye.